All of you who complain about date windows on watches, here you go, Parmigiani is listening. So now your watch can match your nightlife, simple and date-free. I'm sorry, was that too mean? Okay, maybe that joke was too harsh. Sorry, it's my exhaustion talking. I just get tired of a cool watch coming out and then people saying the same thing. I'd buy it if it didn't have a date. Firstly, I don't think you would buy it. And secondly, I think people enjoy complaining about watches more than they enjoy wearing them. But here's your chance to put your money where your internet comments are. And for once, maybe the only time ever, I agree with some of you. This looks great. To me, yeah, this looks better without a date window. And it's an easy comparison to make because Parmigiani makes these two nearly identical watches, and even with the date window placed symmetrically at 6 o'clock, the simplicity of this new watch, it works better for me. But you can choose either watch because despite what a lot of watch collectors prefer, I think the majority of watch buyers want a date complication. They're actually useful. The complication, not the buyers. A lot of potential watch buyers see a date complication as a feature rather than something inconvenient that they have to set to make sure their Instagram photos align with the date that they get posted. This Tonda PF Micro-rotor no date came out only a few months ago during the Watches and Wonders trade show. And at the moment, this is the only dial color. This is called Golden Sienna. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing of Parmigiani, but if you're watching this video, and I assume you are watching this video, it probably won't be the last time you hear about this watchmaker. Parmigiani, see, it wasn't the last time. But what I mean is that if you're into watches or getting into watches, this is one of those brands that people in the know, you know? Parmigiani is a relatively small Swiss watch brand that's earned a lot of respect from watch collectors and watchmakers. Under the radar, high-level, fine Swiss watchmaking. Ask your boy King Charles, he was coronated wearing a Parmigiani. That's a real past tense word, right? Coronated? But he was wearing a dress chronograph. This Tonda PF, this is more on the sportier side of the Parmigiani catalog. First, it's steel. Well, it's mostly steel. The coin edge bezel is made of 950 platinum because. It's also larger than most dress watches. It's 40 millimeters in diameter, 45 millimeters long, and only 7.8 millimeters thick, super thin for an automatically winding watch. It has 100 meters of water resistance with a screw-down crown. I can't imagine swimming with this on, but I kinda really want to try it. It weighs about 130 grams, which, given its design, is relatively light, and again, that's thanks to the thinness of the case and bracelet. $25,300 is the price for this no-date watch. That's also the price for the version with the date. I took this watch to a local meetup, and a lot of people tried this on, and everyone said the same thing. It's so comfortable. People with wrist circumferences from 6.5 inches up to 7.5 inches all said that. And right in the middle of that range, right in the sweet spot, the platonic ideal wrist size, my 7-inch wrist. I also find this watch super comfy. There's a combination of elements here that makes this watch wear so well on many wrist sizes, even if many of them are flawed in their non-7-inchness. The thinness of the watch and the thinness of the bracelet, less than 8 millimeters. That's amazing for an automatic watch. And then there's the relatively short lug-to-lug, 45 millimeters on a 40 millimeter watch. And then there's the lugs, they curve down and they're wide. The whole bracelet is wide without being heavy, so this wears a bit like a cuff. All that means that this watch sits low and really hugs the 7-inch wrist, or whatever. My complaints about how this wear are really about the bracelet. 1, it doesn't have any adjustment system, and 2, it doesn't come with any half links. It really should have one or the other, if not both of those things. What allows the watch to be so thin is pretty obvious. Calories in, calories out. You know, dieting doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Okay, fine. It's the caliber PF703 movement, specifically the fact that it uses a micro-rotor. Movements with micro-rotors are a special kind of mechanical movement. They work the same as other automatic movements with large rotor weights that cover much of the movement, but usually micro-rotor movements are only found in a higher caliber of watchmaking. Caliber. Movements like this are more difficult and thus more expensive to design and make. For example, the only way that a small rotor weight like this can work properly is if it has a high mass. That's why this rotor weight is made of platinum. The 703 is clearly good looking, but it does disappoint a little with only 48 hours of power reserve. Being so thin, Parmigiani might be running up against some tough physics when it comes to power reserve and thinness. Like I said, the dial color is called Golden Sienna, and it has a trademark Parmigiani guilloche texture called grains of barley, or in French, Gland d'orge. And there, now we've lost all our francophone viewers. It's a nice subtle texture on a simple dial. I think it's a really good match. No texture would just be too plain, and I also think something more aggressive and geometric, like the petite tapisserie pattern that we see on Royal Oaks, I just don't think that would match the elegance of the rest of the watch. One detail I really like on the dial is the lowered chapter ring with the applied markers straddling the main dial and the chapter ring. That gives this watch a depth that many watches don't have, and frankly I don't have either. And no text on the dial, no words stating that it's automatic or a water resistance rating or superlative chronometer officially certified. The name of the brand isn't even on the dial really. And for me, that's one of the more appealing things about this brand, and I think that tells a story about who might be into this watch. When I told you that this watch costs $25,300, many of you, maybe most of you, thought, oh hell no. If I were going to spend that kind of money on a watch, I'd want a... And I know what watches most of you were thinking of. We all know what watches most of you were thinking of. And if you've never had those hypier, more famous pieces, your desire is understandable. Those watches are famous for reasons, and some of those reasons are actually good. But if you have or have had some of those more obvious luxury watches, and if you don't care whether or not most people can tell what brand you're wearing, if you're that person, then I think you're the person this Tonda PF is for. And it still amazes me, but there are actually a lot of those people out there. Like I said, I took this to a watch meetup and there were quite a few people who were very tempted by this watch. And its rarity and its non-hypiness are a big part of that appeal. And the other part is the high level of watchmaking, and what I think is a very elegant design. And fine, yes, the fact that it doesn't have a date. You win this time, date haters.